All right, everybody. The first round of the top 8, champ of champs. We have undefeated Scott Flynn versus myself. I was the 8th seed. He is the undefeated top seed. Shout out to Tyler Bertrand. He and I had nearly identical records, and I was just able to eke out the last spot for the finals.
Very nice, very nice. This is Joe Guyenpan coming at you, doing the co-commentary on this first round. Now, I had the pleasure of playing both of these gentlemen in the Swiss, and both of them defeated me in the Swiss, which I think just goes to prove that they cheat.
Absolutely. You want to tell them how?
No, we'll focus on this. Shawn had a very well-earned top 8 victory with an unbelievably clever play with his 1 per deck off his battle site. All right, so we're getting placing. I think I see a Royal Family and a Negate and a Fortress of Solitude in Scott's hand. Shawn, looks like you've got a pretty even smattering of power cards, teamworks, and activators. How are you feeling going into this match against Scott? What are your thoughts when it starts?
8th seed means I don't get initiative at all. So I know he's gonna come out swinging, and but I've got 2 teamworks that can be completed. So I knew if I have the defense in my hand, which I did, I was able to return fire and hopefully start pushing back. But yeah, everyone said he was undefeated. This game had a little mystique with it. I was definitely nervous.
Now, Scott does place 2 low power cards that give him the ability to follow up that teamwork twice. Always something you don't want to see because you're having to calculate your defense, 3 hits out. Shawn, is that the Shadow King avoid a special draw that's in your hand?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And since he had 2 defensive special cards, I knew it was unplayable. But since he just showed me everything and placed out, I knew he was going to run. So even with the dead card, I can get initiative back.
And you're both he's got an extra card placed, but one of them is the Fortress. So he's really going to be up about 1 card on you if you're not counting the Fortress as a for winning a specific hand. And he's asking to read the Shadow King avoid.
Which is disheartening because a lot of people forget that he has that, and Beyonder can play it. So essentially, 66% of my front line can avoid a special card attack and draw an extra card.
Absolutely. And it's one of the advantages sometimes of playing a little bit of a deeper roster. So right here, Scott dupes on his Royal Family. He dupes on Spontaneous Combustion. That tells you, Shawn, whatever you go to place, he can pick one of those cards off. Now, does that influence what you're going to place here at all?
Absolutely. I had to get rid of an ally card, but when someone shows that they have a character like that, it's always in the back of your mind whether you want to place your negate or not. But since he duped out, I know for certain that it's in his hand. So yeah, you have to place a little conservative. You want to keep pace, but you definitely don't want to put those bombs out.
Now, can I ask you, Shawn, why did you have to discard the ally?
Because I don't have these special cards to activate them.
Okay.
They are dead cards. I could place one and get rid of the other.
Okay. So you could have, if you wanted to, this is just a tip for the future, you could have put it on Mr. Fantastic and
No.
had that on him when he comes up.
Absolutely. But even this late in the game, this late in the day, you're not gonna be as 100% sharp.
As sharp. So Scott does what he does, and he wards himself off from specials. He's got a negate on Spawn, a negate on Scarlet Witch, a Royal Family on Inhumans, But the good news is, Shawn, you seem to be stacking up pretty well on teamworks and allies. So those cards aren't going to be as useful.
Absolutely, I was very fortunate. He has a pretty good shell, but he's going to start duping if I don't throw. So just keep my activators in my hand for defense and start punching with teamworks and power cards.
So how many do you go there? Did you bet one,
I believe I bet two, maybe
two?
more, one or two. Yeah,
Looks
I
like
did.
Scott goes one. So
Yeah, because I have initiative, I'm going to stick around and try to do some damage.
great. So Shadow King or Beyonder, someone starting with that energy teamwork. Ooh, and Scott has to use a 7 to defend it. That's usually a pretty good sign that he doesn't have the defense that he's going to need. That's a 4 fighting, which is going to get a bonus of 1, so it's going to come across as a 5 fighting. So that has to be from Beyonder. Yep. That allows you for a Scarlet Witch to make an intellect follow-up. Scott, I think he's taken some time with this, but I think he's probably a little frustrated because it looks like he has a lot of specials in hand. Yeah, so he lets that hit. He realizes the position he's in. He's got heat, but he just can't defend Scarlet Witch really at all. So he plays the fortress and manages to get out of it without losing the venture, but doesn't really put himself in a better position either. He's still sitting on 3 pieces of special card defense, and he didn't manage to use up any of your placed teamwork cards.
Yeah, I saw him taking time with the defensive choices, so I knew I'm gonna have to play from hand because he probably doesn't have enough to stay in.
So you've got some special cards at this point. You've got the big venture reset for Shadow King. I assume we'll see that get placed. You've got the 7 X Babies card that can be defensive. I think you almost at this point would have liked to have seen even more power cards if you just knew you could fuel those teamworks.
Yeah,
Um,
um,
but
I could probably throw one and then block the return, but you don't want to throw two if you don't have any power cards to in your hand for defense.
And so you're explaining the venture reset card. It's surprising to me how many people aren't clear exactly how that works. I think even Josh said he misunderstood its function in the finals in Boston. It does not a lot of character people have it, but it's such a powerful effect.
Yeah,
I
I was telling him it essentially takes everything from the bottom and the top and moves it to the middle, and all ventured missions this battle will then effectively be ventured from the middle. So it's like a big magnet that pulls all the cards back to the middle pile.
to the reserve pile, yes.
Yeah.
So Scott's played Select the Slain, very popular promo. We weren't sure how many people were going to like that, but I would say it's the most popular of the promos from the 2023 season. It allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your draw pile, choose one, reveal it, and put it in hand. For Cadillac decks like this, variants, the energy decks with a lot of defense and big bombs off characters like Starjammers, Inhumans, or the other any heroes. It's just such a great card because within 5, you're usually going to find something that's either a vital piece of defense or a devastating bomb that you can throw. So, Shawn, you managed to. Scott looks like he's kind of in a position where he has to do some fighting. You fire off a teamwork.
Yeah, he used his 6 to block the teamwork. So set since he has the negate place to spawn, I don't know if he has, but again, he showed he did uh, have the defense. So I know if I can just stop his next attack, I can just keep pushing through. And then he used select the slain, I assume, to get more defense to protect Scarlet Witch. But that does give me the opportunity to just attack. He grabs a card, and I get to attack again.
Now, the good news though is he has to reveal what he takes. So you're
Yeah.
gonna know what the card is once he takes it. And clearly, so he takes another 9 or less avoid, which totally makes sense. You can tell by the way he's defending Scarlet Witch that he's having to use those cards to keep her alive. And Shawn, you're doing a good job of playing around all the special card defense.
So I went for my Doc Samson, and I realized, oh, I actually don't want to use that. So I pretty much just showed him a card and then did something else.
That zero is such a great card, but sometimes it's a little bit of a bummer when you just don't. It's not even a second color on a character.
Yeah, it's pretty much just, yeah. It's a zero. Zero has to be blocked by 5 or greater. You want to throw that um, when someone's been beat up, but this version of my Beyonder deck definitely has a lot of fighting, so it might not make the next iteration.
That's what I was just going to ask. Do you think you'll, after this tournament, do you think you'll keep it in, or do you think it might be something you take out?
For this version, absolutely.
Are you running more than one?
No, 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 not at all. Just that one. So he actually is up a placed card on me. So, and he's up on venture.
I'm surprised we don't see more Shadow King with Beyonder. It's just he's got a pretty solid amount of cards that he has that are playable, and he's 16 points. It surprises me we don't see him more often.
So I shifted that teamwork to X Babies and I let it hit. But
And
I use Nick Fury has a card that says avoid an attack with an energy icon and then draw a card. In this current meta, that's very powerful. And I actually draw a follow up for that teamwork without having to make Beyonder be um, vulnerable. Now I throw the 7.
and this is good to finally get through a little bit of that special card defense. So Scott's gonna fire back with that teamwork. I don't think that's surprising, but again, using up those he's using up those placed cards. I agree with that. Block with the card out of your hand. Following up with the multi.
And I just use my pure avoid. Um, so he has 2 cards in hand. I'm in a good position. I could definitely take out Scarlet Witch without. I don't think he has the speed to chain attack. So I was hoping that I can just take out Scarlet Witch and then just take one counter attack before I run.
Yeah, and this is just kind of your deck definitely plays specials, but it plays a lot of teamworks. And Scott's kind of leaning into being able to defend all the specials, which a lot of times are the most devastating attacks. And I think he just drew a little bit of a rough matchup for him for the first round. And variance, you're just drawing the teamwork and power card attacks in exactly the order you need him to put that KO pressure on. So I believe he's lost Scarlet Witch here, correct?
No, he had that second spawn avoid. So I'm just gonna throw it because I know I'm gonna dupe on that 6. So get rid of his placing stuff, and I think I won the venture.
No, I think you lost it. I think the
No, no, it's yeah. You're absolutely right. I lost because of the 3. See, look
yeah,
at that. I'm still I lived it, and I'm still making mistakes. Oh, and this is hard.
3 negates in one hand. That is frustrating. That's tough. One of the most powerful defensive cards in the game. He's got big attacks coming through off Inhumans. I can see the 8 multi in his hand from Scarlet Witch. You really don't want to exhaust all your negates in one hand.
Yeah, and, when he won that venture, and then I saw this draw, I started to get a little less confident. So hopefully he keeps some stuff in his hand I can place out, and he doesn't bet too big.
Yeah, and like we said, Scott is a little bit of a my observation of his play style is lower bets and just kind of trying to confirm he's going to get those 2 every turn. Shawn, you get your Hydra activator place, which is a big deal. He's playing any heroes, so one of your Hydra cards isn't as good. The one that allows you to take and select an attack off their battle site, but Hydra's other cards are pretty fantastic and have really put Helicarrier on the map as a premier battle site.
Absolutely. Essentially, my one per deck on the helicarrier says anything that you have discarded into your dead pile is now a card that I can use. So the site doesn't have a negate, but with my one per deck, I can take one of your spent negates, or draw 3, or anything I need. Um, could pretty much your card is now my card. So he goes 2, and I just get out of dodge. He had some heat. It's interesting he placed his 6 and not his 8 multi. He probably thought I was going to stay in and he was going to hit me with it.
Yeah, well, like we said, Scott likes to keep certain things in hand for the surprise factor, and this is the risk. Sometimes it works out great and it's a genius move. Other times, if the person concedes when you really don't think they're gonna, it can just, it can bite you.
So we got his no teamwork event um, at the wrong time. Had that come earlier, this would be a different game.
All right. Players got cards in their hand. Are we going to see any more placing? Shawn, the 8 you just placed on the reserve. What's going on that happened?
Um, I'm thinking since it's so late, I'm like, I know the KO event's going to come up. And he comes up with an 8, I think. I'm not sure. Oh, I think I've actually duped. That was my last 8, and since Beyonder can't hold it,
I see. Hold on a second. I'm going to mute for 1 minute. I've got a dog next to me in the recording booth. All right. Now, Scott has two specials placed on spawn. Little mistake people make sometimes when they place one of those any character cards.
Yeah. Um, and end of the day, you're a top. You fought all day just to get to the top eight. Yeah, people aren't sharp. I made mistakes.
Absolutely.
He made a mistake. We actually talked about it. It was a sloppy game, drawn out. It was but these things happen.
All right. So Scott went three, which is a little out of character for him. It looked like you just went
Two.
two back. Scott's going to open with that three, and he really likes that finite power. So I think you're going to see, I'm going to guess he's going to immediately fire it off. Oh, he's reaching for something in hand. Well, all right. He's doing the four, and then I think you're going to see him fire that finite
Fine.
power off. So it really doesn't matter that he placed it since he's playing it within the same battle. So what are you thinking about here? What's your thought process? So he's trying to
Well,
pin Beyonder.
I've got the Doc Samson. I'm hoping that I can throw something that he has to use that negate for. He uses his other pin on somebody else, and then I can just Doc Samson and get rid of both of them. I'm sorry, the Doc Samson is going to pull up a KL coded special. Get rid of all special cards uh, that affect remainder of game and remainder of battle.
But you do opt instead to negate it.
Yeah. I don't think I had enough to get rid of that negate, so I'm trying.
All right, Mr. Fantastic through Beyonders, throwing a 7 intellect. Looks like it's going to hit. That's going to bring Scarlet Witch to 19. And then Scott's going to respond with an ally. X Baby's inherent protects them from specials, but not so much from allies.
So I do remember why he went three, and this was a little contentious moment in the game. He had two pins. He threw that pin, and I'm thinking about it, and I was thinking, I'm going to use my negate. I'm going to use my one per deck to copy his negate. And then he said, Beyonder can't use one per deck, which is absolutely true. He cannot. But
Correct.
one of my other characters can just use it as well. So even though the attack targeted Beyonder, Shadow King could have played that one to get rid of that pin.
And do you not realize that at this point?
No, I didn't use it, and I was like, "You're right. You're absolutely right," and I'll let it hit because I still have the Doc Samson to get rid of. So I put it back. I said it hits, and then we continue.
Now, you said you were worried about this negate. Did you think at any point here about trying to put the pressure on Spawn instead to maybe get rid of the negate with a KO instead of making him negate a card?
Well, no, I just didn't have the um, the icons, and Scarlet Witch was so close to dead that I was like, I'm just gonna hopefully do enough damage and just try to make him put him in a position where he has to use the negate, not lose it. So then he throws the Grim Reaper, and I'm like, God damn it. I don't have a negate, and I said it hits. I discard two, and I went to discard the Hydra, and then I said, wait a minute. I don't need to discard the Hydra. Someone else can use it.
Also, you still have the avoid off the Hydra as well.
So I said hits, and I'm like, oh, I don't need to discard that. I can use that from somebody else. And then he calls the judge over, which, you know, this late in the game, such a huge swing, you have to call the judge. And it was ruled that because I said it hits and I removed the cards, I don't get to say it doesn't hit and put it back,
And
even
I
though
think and I think that's the right call. I
no,
think
absolutely. And we were cool with it. No big deal. And I told him, you know, no offense. It's a hectic game, lots of cards thrown around. Yeah, I told him he absolutely needs to call the judge over, and they ruled correctly. And I'm telling him my procedure, but he said, you said it hit, which is fine.
Whew. And this is also just again another one of these things where it's, you know, you've flown into another state. We've been playing games since the previous night, even fun games. You get up, you play all day through a Swiss, and then you're playing a game where every decision, every single small decision can swing an entire game.
Yeah, I'm telling the judge what happened, and they ruled in his favor, rightly so. So that's a big hit. It got rid of my activator, an 8 and a 7.
Yeah. And he's going 3 here, so that's a really big swing.
So I'm ahead 6, but I think he has one more card in hand than I do, and that opening up Beyonder like that, I don't believe I stay, and I might.
So what are you thinking at this point in the game? It looks like you're out of cards in hand.
Am I? I'm yeah. At this point in the game, I'm like, I got Scarlet Witch. He doesn't. Um, he only has one more negate. I can still reset the
Oh no,
venture.
you're not out of cards in hand. There's your hand. You have like 4 cards in hand.
Yeah. So I still think I'm in a good position. That was a real good play. Um, 2 cards I had to negate, and then the Grim Reaper. So he probably feels a little more comfortable that that got through. But I'm still in a good position with Scarlet Witch being dead.
So you're
Although
gonna
that Mr. Fantastic in my head is essentially gone because Beyonder can't attack anymore.
right.
So now I know he has no more negates to stop my venture reset.
Oh, this is an interesting. So this is really interesting. You have taken the time to use your 3 grid activators, and that's the only reason that Captain America survived
Yeah.
that power leeching.
Yeah. It's just there's no reason not to do it. If you use an activator from anyone in the first 3 sets, use their 3 grid, even if if you have a 4 grid and you like the picture, there's no reason to not just play the 3 grid. It's just better for you.
Well, I also think too, as an intellect deck specifically, you kind of need to do that because they're going to choose intellect if they're choosing power leech cards.
So he had to run because he had a dead negate in his hand. It that was a it's a brutal game. My guys are beaten up. He lost Scarlet Witch. I know I'm only have like 1 or 2 hands left, so I have to have my KO event.
I was gonna say, and that's really kind of what you're banking on. You actually haven't gotten either of your events. So I see the one in your hand is going to be no energy power cards can be used at all, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's gonna really hurt Scott. Um, as a majority energy deck, 3/8 energy characters, not a lot of substats. Now he
So
only
he
gets.
got no activators, and since I can only place one, I had to get rid of my red skull.
And what did you keep?
I believe I kept my Nick Fury for the 8 instead of the yeah, and instead of the 6 discard 2, I went for the pure 8. And it doesn't look like that event really dinged him. I don't believe he has his power cards 6, 7, and 8.
But that's also a point where he can't defend with those either. So if you pressure Spawn with those teamwork chains, you know that he has to be using full defensive cards. And you've already seen a lot of the any heroes go by. It's not like a battle site where you're not really sure what's going to come out.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I think you kind of know at this point Spawn's very weak. And again, he
but
can't really afford to fight and let Spawn die because your KO event is still coming up soon.
no, absolutely. But I don't have the teamwork follow in my hand, so my event didn't hit him. His event got one of 2 of my cards, and my teamwork can't be completed. So I'm not in the best position, but he doesn't know what's in my hand.
And this is another part where the game's great is there's that gamesmanship where you have to represent strength here, and his calculation has to be that you've got those two teamwork strings coming through, the first attack of which is a kill. So he's got 6 cards. He's under the event. I'm kind of surprised he's looking at.
So
So
he bet 3, which told me that he didn't have any energy cards in his hand that got hit. So I just won and ran. I didn't even look at the card because I know my KO event's coming up, and that would be a big hit
yeah,
to me.
I agree with you. When you know the KO event's coming up and your deck wants to KO X babies, I believe, right?
Correct.
So you got X babies at a point where they're about to die. Yeah, that's not worth the risk of killing, uh, of accidentally drawing that KO and forcing it as a discard. Now it looks like you have it in your hand. Am I wrong?
No, I do.
All right, the event comes out. This is I guess it's tough for Scott, but I guess he just gets rid of Mr. Doctor Strange. I don't know.
Yeah, no, he absolutely does. He only has a 1 placed, and yeah, the reserve champion, you got to get rid of him. His grid is also very weak for the power pack. It's the right decision, even though he's discarding a strange avoid.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. And you've just got such an enormous placing advantage on him. Scott's really, I would think his mindset, he just had a lot of dupes there too.
Yeah, but I
Scott,
also did as well. I had a Hydra, a 6, and yeah, I had a Hydra, a 6, and um, Mr. Fantastic avoid 9 or less. But I didn't draw for my event, so I need to get one more to replace it.
it's like a good one.
It's a 4 fighting, so I know the teamwork can at least both teamworks now can be strong.
Yeah, and we went over this before, but you drew the 9 or less avoid for Mr. Fantastic, which essentially becomes an any hero card when he comes up to the front. Both characters can use it, so it's always playable.
So
He-
he bet big and I got to draw. So I'm going to use the venture reset, and then he says, "What happens?" I said, "Everything goes to the middle, and what you ventured stays out." He's like, I said, "No, no, no, you're still venturing." He didn't. It's a confusing card if you're not familiar. So I'm just explaining. You still have four ventured, but everything else is in the middle.
And honestly, if you use it on a hand where the other person's betting big for venture, sometimes that's the best time for them to have to deal with it. Because if he wins, he's still 4-3 and can go for the win next hand.
Absolutely. It wasn't the best timing, but I needed to use it.
All right. Scott's going to get that 7 off. Spawn, it's tough because he's in the power pack. He wants to keep any actions that aren't power cards, but at the same time, he doesn't want to be stuck in a situation where he needs to constantly be defending Spawn. So
Yeah,
this
he
puts
just
him down to just the Inhumans, but he also has the Gemini placed. That's the version of the old web-headed wizard. But interesting. So he manages a lockout. Sean, do you have the Doc Samson in hand?
I do not.
You do have a Hydra, so you could go get one of his negates to negate the lockout, because as we established, you have not done that yet.
Correct.
He's going to do the Gemini. And I think that's the decision you're trying to decide. Do you let him Gemini?
So I know right away I want to take his negate, get rid of that lockout, and open him back up. So I'm thinking to myself, there's no way, nothing he can do. Maybe I was considering that a royal family somehow was stopping me, but I just said go do it.
Yeah, and the good news is that what Scott wants to do is get out of Scarlet Witch negate if she was still alive to be able to keep you from getting rid of the lockout or something to that effect. He can't get a negate. So at this point your Hydra card will negate the lockout and you can start attacking his last character. Um so that's good to know. Are you trying to decide here if you're going to throw the draw 3?
Yeah, but I have a seven and six placed and an eight in my hand. It's just not the best time. If he's in his power pack, he doesn't have the steam to chain. So I'm gonna wait to burn some more of my.
Yep, and you do exactly what I would have done. I think you're doing exactly the right thing. Your Hydra 1 per deck copies the negate copies the lockout.
No, it negates the
Or
lockout.
the
No.
negates the lockout. And at this point, yeah, that 1 per deck is so versatile. I find that there's other things like Phil said in one of the earlier commentaries. You're not guaranteed just getting the draw 3 off, say, the Power Mimic site. But the Hydra one gives you so many options of what's in their dead pile. I find that savvy players can really pull out some very interesting tricks with it. Like we talked about before, you weren't showing the follow up, so he probably wasn't expecting to eat that teamwork.
Yeah, he plays really tight, and he bet three and had to run, and then he bets four, and I could reset the venture. Um, he's definitely he's definitely backpedaling right now.
Yeah, the problem is again, you just think about the slots. I mean, you can absorb at this point if you let Shadow King could take another hit, Beyonder can take a hit, and Mr. Fantastic can take two hits. Shadow King would die, but that's essentially four hits you can take before you even have to worry about blocking a single card, and he can only take three hits before he's dead and the game's over. So, this is the point in the game where I start thinking about the ability to take hits as, just
he
a resource to spend.
no, yeah, your hit points are definitely resources. He just said, "Are you making any more?" And I said, "No, go ahead, your turn." He's like, "No, you're you have to follow up your own teamwork." I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I throw my eight. Um, yeah, now he sees what's happening. He can block it. I still have a draw three. Um, and I don't believe I'm in my. Yes, I am. I was one into my power pick. So
Yeah, so Scott's,
yeah, he's up seven, and I have seven showing.
well, he's got a 9 and a 7
Right.
right now.
So he's up by seven.
Yes, yeah.
So now, yeah,
And he's asking you how many cards in hand. You still have one. Yep. And he's
he's
got a
upset. He's like, "You're out of cards." I was like, "No, I have this one," and he's like, "Oh."
yeah. It's a tough position. At this point you can't even with a lot of good stuff, you can't make the plays when you are down to one guy with one or two hits because you just also can't afford for them to die. So it's a really tough situation at this point, no matter how good of a player you are. And also at this point, I believe was he in his power pack already?
Yes.
And you have a draw three placed. I mean, I think at this point, I don't know what you do. If it's me, I'm just gonna bet for the win here. And even if he gets the full amount of cards in his hand, um, he's not gonna be able to stop every single hit. You can just let Beyonder die, take two hits off Fantastic, play a draw three that can't be stopped, and then he's gonna die. You're gonna be able to kill him this turn.
Absolutely.
And he can't go for the win. So he couldn't even do something where he lets his character die, but tries to win on the venture first, which is the order of operation for the end of hand. Venture comes first. It is possible in Overpower to lose your team, but they still heroically complete their mission and you win the game.
Yeah, and I'm very aware of that. I'm thinking, what are his pathways to victory? Not many. He has his eight. I do too. I just go three, I think, because I go three and two for the win. There's no reason for me to get fancy. I believe we're having a conversation about where missions landed and how is he down. And I said, well, the everything was pulled to the middle. So again, it falls back on that Shadow King one.
Yeah. And it really is, that card can be devastating. I've never played it much off Shadow King, but I had a number of decks that used Captain Marvel, who also plays that card. Also, a character I'm surprised doesn't see more play. It's 22 points for a character who's offensively max 6, defensively max 8, but he comes with that reset. He comes with the remove all hits venture card. He comes with a 9 or less avoid, a 7 half multi. All right, so you fire off the 7 right here. Now, this is a card Scott can absorb this, but it also puts him at 17. So he lets it hit. He throws the 7 back at Beyonder. You let Beyonder go. I agree with everything here so far.
Yeah, he has to throw that 8. He didn't know I had it, so now I know he's feeling pretty vulnerable. I definitely could have let that hit and just
And now you just have an extra card in hand, so he has to run.
yeah.
And that's the other problem too, is you're leaning on that advantage. So you just have the draw 3 there.
Yeah, and he knows it. He shook hands, and we're talking. Both of us made mistakes. Making it to the power pack at the top 8. Long day.
Very, that's the thing. And remember, this is champ of champs too. So it's not like you're not playing. Every single person you're playing here has either won a tournament or did very well throughout the entire season. So every single game is going to be a very difficult game against a very good player. People during these elimination rounds are just exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it was I think it was Phil Keffer who said the the person who gets the best night's sleep, and we shake hands again. Nothing but a good sportsmanship,
Yeah,
and
and it's got to be
it was a great
frustrating
game.
for Scott too. That's I think, like you said, I think he's had 2 undefeated Swisses, and going undefeated in the Swiss and getting knocked out in the first round, it's always a bummer. But Scott played exceptional overpower that entire day. Of all the matches I've seen on camera, no significant mistakes. Everyone's gonna make little mistakes. It's people win tournaments who make the least small mistakes. That's what I always say. And Scott didn't really make that many. Just it just the way that specific game went. You had a really good draw. His variance was that his special card defense didn't come up at quite the right times, and you managed to pull it out. But Scott's a great player who's improving every event, and
Oh yeah,
uh, I really,
just a battle, just a battle.
yeah, I think you're gonna see a lot of top 8s with Scott Flint in it this season. I'm gonna call that right now.
Absolutely. No, it was really a nice game to be a part of, and yeah.
All right, everybody, we are going to go on to the semifinals next.
Yes. See you there.